So a while back, this dev approached me asking if I want to try out their game. It was before my trip where I'd be gone for an entire month. I wouldn't be able to make a video on it, but I kept it in the back of my mind basically the whole time. Now that I'm back, I decided to finally give this dev's game a shot. But wait, this dev got a bit worried that his game might not be up to my standards. I know I can get a little bit frustrated, but most of the time I'm playing it up for the camera. You know, as long as the game is fun, I don't think it matters too much. So today, we're playing RPG Hell Edition. I think this game is enough to make a grown man cry. And not in a good way. Before we start the video, I just want to say that we're getting close to 25k subscribers. Stop! I know you're about to click off, but please wait a minute. Our goal is to reach 25k subscribers by the end of the year. So if you haven't already, it'd be a big help to click that sub button. But it's not like I want you to press it or anything. Fuck. Why did I write this? Join the Discord server as well because we have an incredible community that's completely normal and not insane in the slightest. As you can also see, we have channel memberships. Want to support this channel even more? Then you get access to videos early, a cool role in the Discord server, and you get featured at the end credits. Okay, self-plug over.
Start digging in your butt, twin.
What?
RPG Hell Edition, or HE as I'll call it for this video, is an action RPG made by the devs at existing studios. It's a boss gauntlet type of RPG set in the depths of hell where you fight tortured souls by entering their eternal homes. So you're basically Santa Claus, but all the naughty children get beaten to death.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
It's your job to learn about their backstories and slay their existences. Sure, yeah, whatever. No one cares about the backstories, not even the game itself. These bosses fight using bullet hell style attacks. Ah, I get it. I see what y'all did there. After each boss gets killed, you get rewarded with new gear. Some gear can only be unlocked through higher difficulties, so you're encouraged to try the hardest difficulties for better loot. There are 7 difficulties that range from simple to ruthless, but don't let the names of the difficulties fool you, because you'll still be fighting an uphill battle. By beating bosses, you gain experience to level up, but there are level caps that can only be lifted by defeating certain bosses. Now, there are a couple of different gear types you'll be fighting throughout the game. The weapons and armor are pretty obvious inclusions, and you can probably figure out what accessories are for. Essences give you a special ability, I think. I don't know, I only found one of them. Sub-weapons are special weapons that have a cooldown. Death effects are weird because I thought they were just cosmetic at first, since like, that's what you think when you see you can customize your death effect, but they actually have important perks, so that's something to keep in mind. You got pets? Oh my god, we have pets? I can never escape Preston! Last, we have edibles, but I don't know what they do because I never found any. I don't even know if I'm allowed to call these edibles on YouTube. Why are they called edibles? Just call them food like a normal person! After finishing the tutorial, you have to fight your way underground before you can finally reach the surface. Now, the surface acts as a hub world where you can fight the rest of the bosses. There's a recommended order, but you can challenge any boss portal you find. If you want to unlock more boss portals, you have to fight specific bosses like how you do to increase the level cap. When it comes to combat in this game, it's pretty simple. Bosses will randomly spawn projectiles and other attacks for you to dodge. As for your job, you just have to hit them until they die. You obviously have your main weapon for basic attacks, but you can also combo using your sub-weapons as well. You have a dodge roll at your disposal that gives you a few iframes. You can also use the active ability on your equipped essence depending on what you've selected. As for why we're fighting these bosses, our goal is to kill all the tortured souls. I don't even think getting out of hell is our top priority. If it is, the game doesn't really make an effort to clarify. You know, why are we even in hell in the first place? It better not be because of what I did in free draw. If so, I sure hope Nicole is down here with me. Moving on, it's time that I give my thoughts on the game. So in the overview, I kept my actual thoughts on the game fairly neutral, and yeah, I'm just gonna rip off the band-aid right now. I hardly got anything good to say about this game, but you could have probably figured that out by the title of the video. I will say, this game is definitely engaging, I guess. Most Roblox RPGs are bandit beater slop simulators. All you do is go from area to area beating enemies programmed with the same level of intelligence we've been using in Roblox games since 2008. Bandit beaters tend to be way easier to make and super easy to monetize. Players also tend to quit after seeing even a modicum of challenging games, so bandit beaters are mind-numbingly easy. There are no defeat 8 snowman's quests in this game, thankfully, and I guess I could appreciate that. There's definitely effort put into this game. As far as I can tell, there aren't any egregious microtransactions where you get to buy some OP sword where you get to rip every boss's balls off with one click. I know we're achieving the bare minimum of not shoving ads in your face all the time, but it's gotten so bad that this could be a legitimate point of recommendation for a game. Last thing, since I don't know where to put this because this is neither positive nor negative, but like, during one of the boss fights, I got this weird timer at the bottom of my screen. When the countdown finished, I started getting some weird cryptic messages to the point where they got hashtagged. And it took me a sec to realize that this wasn't part of the boss fight. I think it was the head dev in my server sending those messages. It was kind of weird, but ultimately harmless, I guess. Unfortunately, yeah, that's like all I could think of for the positives.
I pray to God that in our lifetime they develop technology so that I can slap the fuck out of you in the air and you will feel every single incident.
First and foremost, when you go to the game page, you're immediately going to notice the horrendous like to dislike ratio. Now, if you've been on Roblox, you're probably very well aware of how, because a bunch of drooling 5-year-olds play games on their mom's tablet,
my toddler.
They often just immediately quit the game after facing the slightest roadblock, and then immediately dislike the game. But I know better, because like the wise DJ Khaled said, life is, in fact, Roblox.
Life. There's Roblox.
I'm proud of my son. Y'all low-key sleeping on Roblox.
I thought maybe the game was actually really fun, but after playing for a few hours, I just want to say this with no offense to the dev whatsoever, but maybe, just maybe, the dislikes are deserved. As soon as you launch the game, you're blasted with this absolute eyesore. Why is this game so red? Like, actually, the map is almost completely red with a red tint in the lighting. That combined with neon parts everywhere using 255 red, it makes it so unpleasant to look at. 255 is literally the reddest red your computer can make, so why did you decide to put it everywhere? Even the UI is red text on a red background. Now, I get this is hell and all, but why is literally everything red? It all just blends together, but because it's such a high saturation of red, it somehow feels mind-numbing and overstimulating at the same time. I don't expect y'all to be color theory experts to make a Roblox game, but this feels like the equivalent of when DeviantArt OCs use every color in the rainbow instead of an actual color scheme. Now, on the topic of UI, I get that Roblox UI isn't going to be winning any awards, but this UI really blows, not gonna lie. All the core character customization and settings are in this little side menu, and you have to slowly scroll through the different menus to change certain aspects of gear like sub-weapons or edibles. I mentioned this because, yup, there's no dedicated close button, nor does the side menu close the current menu. That means that if you're like me, you often have to scroll all the way back to the button to close it through there. Look, I get that it's a lot of work to make a close button, but this is really annoying. I know that sounds a lot like a nitpick, but fine, let's ignore that. One thing you can't ignore though, is that not only is the UI ugly, but it's transparent for some reason. It makes it really annoying to read text when it overlaps with other UI elements, especially other bits of text. This wouldn't be a problem if the background was solid and opaque. I get that this game is hell-themed, but the only thing hellish right now is the user experience. Also, here's some other UI related nitpicks because I don't know where else to fit these. The difficulty rewards are engraved onto the portal, but the text is so tiny that you have to get up close to read them, which is pretty stupid. However, when you get close, the interact prompt covers up the text, so you can't really read what the rewards are sometimes. One time, I accidentally walked through the portal and that opened up the queue screen, but I was in first person, so my mouse was locked. I thought I could just reset myself to unlock the camera, but apparently resetting is disabled in the hub world. That meant that I legitimately got soft locked from something as basic as playing the game in first person. Literally, why would you do this? Why would you do any of this? Just put the listed rewards in a HUD element instead of lazily pasting it on the door. Yeah, I said the L word. I don't ever call devs lazy in my videos, but this is just straight up lazy. Another thing about the portals is that the music credits are just plastered on top of the portals using a surface GUI. This genuinely feels amateur. Even I can make it so that the music credits appear in an unobtrusive HUD element on the corner of the screen. But that's not what gets me the most. What really gets me is that some portals just say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You made the game! Did the music just mysteriously appear in your game files, labeled in wingdings or something? Do you live in a country where your government banned Shazam? Next thing that I don't get is why the difficulty is locked every single time you change it. Whenever you spawn in, the difficulty defaults to normal. You can change it to be higher or lower, but once you click that difficulty, it's locked in until you die. If you try to change the difficulty back by clicking on the selector, it just says some nonsense like error or denied. Literally, why? I legitimately can't think of a reason why you design a difficulty selector like this. It really sucks if you misclick a difficulty because remember, you can't reset in the hub world. That means that you have to go to a portal, start the boss fight, and then reset. Literally, all the difficulty does is change how much health you have. So the only reason why you'd make a difficulty selector like this is if you got mad spaghetti code. And you can't be bothered to fix it because changing difficulties would cause the game to implode or something. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Last thing, but this is less of a problem with the UI itself and more with the overall tone of the game. This game is healthy and all, so the game wants to be cool and edgy. Most bosses are trying so hard to be menacing and serious, but literally any text that isn't spoken by a character is written in a quirky Tumblr humor style. That sounds weird, but you'll know what I mean when you read this stuff. That means that I cannot take the edgier characters seriously, nor can I find the devs' attempts at humor funny in the slightest. The best way I can put this is that it's trying way too hard to be nonchalantly funny. When you load up into the game, you have to do a tutorial to progress. We did it, guys! A tutorial in a Roblox game! Yeah, literally the bare minimum. Okay, all this tutorial does is give you an info dump before your first battle. It gives you so much info that's irrelevant at the moment. Like, bro, you're talking about things on the surface, but I haven't even gone through the underground bosses yet. Also, the camera moves around to show you what the game is talking about, but sometimes it just points to random spots for no reason, like it's going schizo. And I don't know what's up with that. After you reach the surface, you're treated to this absolute eyesore of a hub world. There's a recommended order to fight the bosses, but the only indicators on where to go are these little arrows. And for some reason, they only use a one-way surface UI that only lets you see one side of the sign, so it becomes even harder to see where to go. Granted, the hub area is pretty small, so you won't be lost for long though. You know, making your whole game one saturated color might have been a bad idea. I'm just saying. Instead of having tiny little arrows that vaguely point to the next portal, it might have been a better idea to have a UI marker that marks the portal's location. Don't make it red, by the way. I know you're just itching to add more bright red stuff to your game, but please don't. Speaking of portals, let's talk about the bosses you find behind these portals. When you start off fighting in the depths, you realize that all the bosses are absolute baby mode. It's all one straight line with nothing of note apart from the shop at spawn. One thing you'll notice very quickly is that every time you defeat a boss or die, you respawn all the way at the beginning of the depths. Here's a never thought of concept. Spawn me back at the portal I just entered. Jesus Christ, I'm tired of walking all the way back every time. There's a second spawn point at the surface, but it's so tiny and out of the way that I barely noticed it until much later. After you reach the surface, the difficulty really ramps up. As I said before, the boss is attacked by randomly spawning projectiles to shoot at you. Emphasis on random. Okay, editor's note. I was chatting with the dev of the game, and apparently these attacks are not, in fact, random. They claim that the attacks are the same each time, meaning that chucking every attack at the player until they die is a deliberate design choice. You see, bosses in this game don't really have attack patterns, per se. This game follows the philosophy of spamming literally every single attack at the boss's disposal at the player because they can't dodge everything. The good old tactic of whoever dies first loses. Sometimes the attacks literally just spawn on top of you. You're lucky if you even get an attack that bothers to telegraph itself. Sometimes attacks just spawn outside of the arena, so sometimes telegraphing doesn't even matter. The frequency of attacks spawning is so bad that it's less about deliberately dodging the attacks like an actual bullet hell, but most of the time it's just hoping that you have enough health to tank the hits coming your way. One thing about the projectile attacks that I will say is that for some reason, the developer decided to animate the projectiles in low frame rate steps instead of smoothly moving across the screen like literally every other game ever. You know, there's a reason why projectiles always move smoothly in other games. And that's because it's really disorienting when you're seeing something changing location without moving, especially when you have to be tracking where that thing is so you can be where it isn't. What I think happened is that the dev tried adding the projectiles, but Roblox is infamous for having laggy projectiles. I think they just gave up and started manually moving the projectiles using a loop with a long wait between steps. That way when it lags at the start, it doesn't look as noticeable. Personally, I'd imagine that it'd be easier to make a ray cast and move a region 3 object along the ray, and then instead of using resource intensive calculations with physics objects, making that iconic laggy Roblox projectile we all know and hate, you could just animate the projectile effect to the region 3 to give the illusion of a projectile moving. For all the people who felt that go way over their heads, basically I'm saying that instead of using physics to make projectiles, just use simpler geometry instead to be less laggy. But I don't know if this would actually work. I'm just a guy who makes internet videos, not a developer. While I'm talking about fixing the attacks, Roblox's crappy netcode means that some attacks hit you when you clearly dodge them. My suggestion is that because this is a strictly PvE game, and the bosses don't even move around the arena, I'll talk more about that later, it'd be easier for the attacks to be made client-sided, so that the attacks can feel a bit more fair. These issues with the actual attacks alongside the fact that a lot of necessary gear for surviving later bosses comes from beating nightmare difficulty make it an awful experience to actually try and survive. That's because, as you might have guessed, spamming literally every single attack of the player doesn't make for engaging boss design. A good action game boss has patterns that the player has to remember and avoid. If they fail, they should know exactly how to avoid it next time. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have the mechanical skill to avoid attacks, but knowing goes a long way. An even better boss is able to tell somewhat of a story with their attacks, whether they express it literally through the narrative, or if the attacks only signal a progression of the boss's state of mind. This means stuff like stronger attacks as the boss goes on, or they pull a final desperate attack when they get low on health. One last thing I've noticed about the bosses is that all of them just stand in this one spot in the arena. I get that the arena is small and maybe you don't want them moving too much, but an arena is still an arena. Have the boss move at least a smidge. Boss fights are supposed to be, well, fights. But having the boss remain completely emotionless as attacks spawn around them create a disconnect that makes the fights feel more like a beating simulator. It's a smaller nitpick, but these guys have no reason to be frozen completely still. I just don't really feel like much thought or testing was put into making these bosses fun. But hey, at least they somehow managed to make better bosses than Your Bizarre Adventure. Heyo! I will die before I let Paragon walk free. In the end, I kinda feel bad for bashing this game. It has higher effort put into it, but like I've said in the past, effort doesn't automatically equal good. I feel like a lot of these issues could be avoided if you've just had some outside testers, because there are so many things in this game that confuse me. Like, how did this get so far into development without a single person pointing out these glaring issues? It's no wonder why no one plays this game. I can only play for a couple of hours before quitting because the game, well, it just sucks. Why do I hold the spear like this? And I really hate to say it. What I think happened is that often devs get so used to playing their own game during testing that they become numb to the difficulty. What happens is that the dev knows the game like the back of their hand, but they think it's too easy, so they increase the difficulty without considering how the game feels to play for actual players. I know this feeling all too well because back in high school, the games I made for my classmates to play were just too hard, but I refused to change anything fundamental about the game because I got too big an ego. This game honestly feels held together with duct tape and prayers. That means that I'm gonna give HE a Luna feet pics out of 10.
What? Sub-cosmetic fires a blast of cosmetic glory. Is this a cosmetic or not? Damage 0. What does this even do? You're telling me you just add a fireball ability that does 0 damage? 0. Zilch. No. Zero. No damage for no reason. You have me fight through that boss just to get nothing? Just a waste of a slot?